Hello everybody, it's me Chris at Pro-Am with our Friday chat. I'm going to do something different this week for a couple of reasons. One reason being we were looking forward to doing some content with some of our new deliveries, our new products. As usual, some things that have come are not good and some things are late, are high-end stuff. So first I'll tell you what's up. We had a couple of things, small items sent from suppliers in Sialkot, Pakistan. As usual, they promised me that they could do the correct thing and that they'd have it done this way right and that way right after us sending every detail so they couldn't get it wrong. They got it wrong. So we were expecting mostly boxing kits, you know, for the amateurs. One was we ordered, I think, 180 amateur boxing kits for stock, you know, the blue, white, red, white and black, white standard kit colours, and some hand wraps, you know, and I think it was 600 pairs of hand wraps, 2.5 metre, 4.5 metre. What we actually got was 100 pair of 4 metre hand wraps, half in red and half in blue, that were not to the standard that we normally have, and we have got 8 kits and 2 vests instead of 180, and they were pretty poor quality after us paying up front for them. This is that thing where I say to you, if you wanted to get into this business, be very careful. I've got 30 years experience with dealing with these cowboys, and after all these assurances we still got delivered a load of crap. So it goes in a bucket, you know. The hand wraps, the stretch hand wraps, but they're not what we would say are standard. So they're in a bucket there for £5 a pair, half price. People who don't really mind or don't care, they'll buy that kind of thing. And the kits we've just thrown away, to be fair, because they're definitely not to our standard. Anyway, on to the reason what I'm going to talk about today is everyone's talking about the big fight coming up in April, which is Chris Eubank Jr versus Benn. Now, I've been watching a lot on YouTube and other social media platforms, their opinions of what's happening. I'm sort of that camp where I was always a Nigel Benn fan more than a Chris Eubank fan, although I do like Chris Eubank, the way he fought. His style was unique. He was granite chinned at his own weight, and he was heavy-handed, and he was good to watch in a way. He always played the villain, which somebody has to, I suppose. Even though Nigel Benn was the aggressor 9 times out of 10. I'd seen Nigel Benn earlier before a lot of other people because we were in the army at the same time. I was an army boxer in the army boxing team, and I don't think Nigel was, or he was on the periphery of it. He's a little bit younger than me. So I knew about him then, and when he left the army and was in the amateur boxing elite championships, he actually won the ABA title, so I knew he was capable of that. So obviously I followed him through his pro career. He actually fought a friend of mine from St Helens, a good pro, Ian Ashton. I remember that one. So obviously I followed Nigel that way, and when Chris Eubank came along, they sort of bounced off each other, didn't they, in them 2 fights. I thought Eubank's tactics were brilliant in the first fight, and I was gutted Nigel was stopped. And I actually thought Nigel won the rematch at Manchester, and it was given a draw, but there you go. Anyway, that's the old guys out the way. Now, as for Chris Eubank Jr, he's been a personality. I think a lot of people think he's tried to be like his dad, or his dad's tried to mould him in his image. So he's been the villain mostly. Whenever he's stepped up to higher level or world level, he's always failed. Unfortunately, he's been beaten by the likes of Billy Joe Saunders, beaten for the British title, and Billy Joe Saunders was a world champion. Very skillful southpaw, and to be fair, it was only Canelo beating him, hasn't he? So We know he was a good standard to judge him from. George Groves beat him, he was just too big, too strong and too good for him, etc. So we know he has actually dabbled at fringe world level, if you like, and been found wanting. When he boxed Liam Smith, the first time, they're saying he took the Liam Smith fight because the first Conor Benn fight fell through with him failing the drugs test. I'll get onto that shortly. So he failed the drugs test. So a few weeks later, they were looking for another fighter. Liam Smith stepped in. I don't really buy the fact that he was drained from making the weight to fight Conor Benn, and that's why he got knocked out against Liam Smith, because there was weeks in between, so he'd have had plenty of time to get his strength and his body fluids back in, etc. Liam soundly beat him. Liam is a world-class super welter, stroke middleweight, and he soundly beat Eubank Jr. Now we all know Eubank Jr stopped Liam in the return fight, but there was a lot of mitigating circumstances in that. We're told Smith was injured, he had a back injury and a leg injury, he wasn't well. He wanted to put the fight back to fight him so he was 100% fit, which as a professional trainer and manager myself, I would have asked. I never like any fighter going in, even if they've got a bit of a cold, you're not getting 100%, so you're not showing your true worth in a fight. So the Sauerland brothers, who were managing Eubank Jr on behalf of Wasserman, they insisted the fight go on that date, even though knowing Liam Smith was not fit enough through injury to compete on that date. They just wanted the win, the redemption. So most general public and fans, they wouldn't know the backstory on that. So everybody who knows what Liam Smith is like, you saw in the return, his ankles were rolling, he couldn't move. He gave it a go. He couldn't. Obviously, he could. All the Smith brothers have an excellent defence, and on that night, Liam's defence, because he couldn't move, was not good. So Eubank saying he got his revenge, or people going, yeah, he got it. He got his revenge on half of Liam Smith, not the full Liam Smith. So it doesn't wash with me, that one. I think 100% Liam Smith will always beat 100% Eubank Jr. So that's where Eubank Jr is at with his career. Plus he's 36 now. He's always been saying, I'll fight Canelo, I'll fight Triple G. It's never happened, and it wouldn't happen because he's not that level. Both of them would be far too good for Eubank Jr. They're elite level, not world level. They're that very top elite 2 of every weight. So, and he's 36 now, so we know he's coming down. They say he's a super middleweight, which is 168 pounds. The fight's been made at 160. He is basically a 160 fighter. He's going to weigh 160, 36 hours roughly before the fight, so he'll get to put some fluids back in. He's been told he can't put more than 10 pounds back on. My opinion is he'll put what he wants on, and if he comes in 12, 13, 14, 15 pounds over the next day, they'll fine him and he'll take the fine and go, yeah, whatever. That's the way I see Eubank going, but I don't see the weight being against Eubank. I see his age more against Eubank in this fight. Now, as for Conor Benn, Conor's got a good record. He's a 147 pound fighter, a welterweight. So he's 2.5 weight divisions below, if you like. He seems to make the 147 easy. He's never fought at world level. He's fought journeymen, basically. Journeymen and fringe championship level fighters on the slide, which is a shame really. He's been very well promoted by Eddie Hearn. I like him, his personality's, yeah, it does remind you of his dad. He fights very similar to his dad, but obviously he's a lot smaller. The other thing about him, he doesn't have this, he's not the same size obviously. His dad was a middle stroke super middleweight, and he, similar to Eubank Jr, they didn't have the amateur career that the fathers had. I know Eubank Sr only had a handful of amateur fights in the US. I think he went into the New York Golden Glove State Championships, which is not like what we have here. Nigel was an elite ABA champion. Came from a kickboxing background. Obviously we don't do a lot of kickboxing in the British Army, but we do a lot of amateur boxing. The same as your regiment is the same as an amateur boxing club basically. You get carded. Although our cards were different, our books, what we used to have, the amateur boxing clubs had a little bluey grey book. You opened it up, you had your picture in it, your name, your weight, your club, etc. And then you had a list of all your bouts, date, time, who it was against, where it was, decision, points, etc. The army one was like a beige book, and you opened it backwards and your picture and everything was on the back page, and it folded in. A bit like an international book, because you have an international, what used to be an AIBA book. But yeah, by the way, that's me digressing. So Nigel had a decent army boxing career, and then he came out and he boxed with, I think it was Lynn ABC or someone like that in London. Won the ABAs at National Elites, and then turned pro, because he did have a pro style. You can't argue with that. He was a savage puncher, wasn't he? All over you, didn't give you a minute's rest. Good fighter to watch, perfect for the pro game. Eubank Jr, he had, I believe, 25-ish amateur bouts as a young fella coming through. Didn't win any national titles, and as far as I know didn't get to any championship finals, let alone, no. So he just had an average amateur career. Conor Benn, we're led to believe, had 18 or 20 amateur bouts in Australia. The rules in this country are now you have to have an amateur boxing record to take a British Boxing Board of Control licence out. It never used to be, but it is now. If you've fought white collar only or unlicensed boxing, you will not get a British Boxing Board of Control licence. If you've done professional Thai boxing, kickboxing, any other combat sports, you will not get a British Boxing Board of Control licence. You must have a traceable amateur record. I've been up in front of the board with some boxers, and they've said, yeah, he's had 42 kickboxing bouts, but when he's had a minimum of 5 amateur bouts we can see at a good level, then we'll consider granting him a professional licence. That's the way it is. Now I have found, and there is certain boxers, because of who they are, this doesn't apply, which is a Boxing Board of Control anomaly we have. We're all set by strict rules about licensing, but some people seem to get allowed a licence without following these rules. I can name a couple, just, yeah, bollocks to it, yeah. What's the board going to do? Suspend me if they watch this? But I'm right. Since I've been I've had 2 boxers, not I was with them for somebody else. My friend's 2 boxers. One was a both were Thai boxers. One had 42 professional fights. He snapped his medial ligament and he couldn't kickbox anymore, so he wanted to change over to proper boxing, if you like. He had pictures and certificates and everything of his fights. The board said, no, have about 5 amateur fights and come back. And we had another one who'd had a massive amateur kickboxing career. He was teammates with Nick Ball, but he didn't turn amateur. And he said the same to him. Have 4 or 5 amateur bouts and then we'll consider you turning professional. Okay, fair enough. Around the same time, Roman Fury had his pro debut. Roman Fury had never boxed amateur. Although he'd been in the gym with his brothers, he never boxed amateur, and he was given a pro licence immediately. Now, most of us here in this, well, as you say, division, we're what we call Merseyside and Cheshire, or North West counties, north of England. We all know each other in the amateur clubs and the pro gyms. So we know he didn't box amateur for any clubs in that division. He was just given that licence because his name was Fury. So, okay, one slipped through the net. Then this year we've seen Nassim Hamed's 2 sons, Sonny and Adam, been granted pro licences. They've never boxed amateur. They have trained in professional gyms and such, but they've never had one amateur contest between them. I know this because I've spoke to them personally. Sonny comes in the shop, or he used to buy his gloves off me. So I know, and he's actually told me he's never actually boxed amateur, although he's trained in gyms since being younger. So that's where we have this anomaly about rules and regulations. So coming back to what I'm saying, we don't really know if Conor Benn actually boxed amateur, but that's by the by. Anyway, he's had quite a few professional fights. He's learned through the pro game. Hence all these journeymen he's boxed and knocked out. The biggest name on his record is the former world champion Chris Algieri, who won his world title at a weight below it, super lightweight they call it, I think, junior welterweight, whatever. 7 pounds lighter. By the time he fought Conor Benn and was knocked out by Conor Benn, he was on the slide, he was shot, he'd been well beaten. And it was his last fight, I think, or it was meant to be his last fight at the time. So Conor's not even boxed for an area, English, British, Commonwealth, or any of those titles. Most of the lads pick up on the way to learn the pro game, and they learn the championship run-ins and how to have a camp for a 12-round fight for a title, etc. Eubank Jr, as we know, before Billy Joe Saunders for the British title. Or was it British and Commonwealth? I'm not sure, and he was British champion himself. So, although a lot of people are leaning towards Conor Benn because he's younger, fitter, stronger, more aggressive, well, stronger. He's stronger at 147, not at 160, where the fight's been made at. So a lot of people, including myself, I thought Conor Benn will just roll over him. But will he? Will he? At 36 years old and fighting at a higher, stronger level, is Eubank got that little bit more about him where he can nullify the speed and strength of Conor Benn? I'm split now, and you see a lot of the top people like Amir Khan and Carl Froch and people, they all said in the beginning, yeah, Conor Benn will do him in, he's the villain anyway, Eubank, he's got to be finished off. The dad's got robbed and etc. Now the things are coming closer, they're all switching over to Eubank might be a big and a bit clever for him. So we're all going 50-50 now, people in the game. It's a choice of who do you pick. Now, obviously my interest is the equipment side of it as well. Now, I've got loads of pictures, and we see Conor Benn generally uses Everlast gloves. Being the self-proclaimed puncher he is, he's going to get the ones with the least padding he can get. Everlast MX2s, which he generally boxes in, I've got 0 padding in, as we know. So his style and his idea is he's going to knock out Chris Eubank, who's going to get the least padding in a glove that he can use. one thing I will say is, at 147, normally he'd be boxing in an 8-ounce glove. Pardon me. Normally he'd be boxing in an 8-ounce glove. At 160, they're going to be boxing in 10s. So there is a little bit difference, and Eubank Jr is used to boxing in 10s. Now Eubank Jr, he's not so fussy on what he wears. I've seen him wearing, early on in his career, he'd wear Reyes gloves. I've seen him wearing Grant. He does tend to wear the big name brand gloves. Doesn't mean they're better gloves than anybody else's. In his last 4 or 5 fights, I've noticed he uses winning gloves. Now, winning gloves are quite similar to our FF fight glove. You know, they've got a multi-layer foam lining. The idea is they're a bit more protective for your hands rather than the horsehair type gloves. Is that with his age and he's thinking your hands are a bit more fragile? He does hit quite hard for a middleweight, so is he looking after his hands because his hands are fragile? He's used to 10-ounce gloves as well, so he's knocked people out and damaged people with 10-ounce gloves on throughout his career, so that doesn't really matter to him. So there you have it. I would suggest, or I would think, you'll see Conor Benn rocking up in Everlast MX2 gloves on the night, and Eubank Jr will be using winning, which he has in his last few fights anyway. Unless there's a bit of a moan and a complaint about it. I do know, I've seen both of them training. Obviously, when you see Eubank training, he's fully decked out in the winning gear, and what I've seen of Conor Benn training with my old mate Tony Sims, he tends to use a lot of fly gear, which is very little padding as well. So he's used to training and fighting in equipment that's got very little padding, so his hands will probably be conditioned that bit more, used to that kind of glove. So that's my side of it. I like, you know, obviously the equipment side, because I study it, I make it, I design it. It is what it is. Unless there's any arguments, I would imagine Ben being down as the bigger puncher and the aggressor, he'll want to use gloves with as little padding as possible. Knowing Eubank, he'll argue the case, you're not wearing them, there's no padding in them. He'll have a go, be it mind games or not, at the glove choosing part of the procedure. I can see him having a moan about it, you're not wearing them, etc. They're not padded enough. But that's the way I'll see it. Everlast MXs or fly, if he's not allowed the MXs. for Ben, and Eubank will have the winning fight gloves. So there you have it. I'm thinking a 50-50 fight. Eubank Senior is still adamant it ain't gonna happen, and Harlem Eubank will take his place. Actually, I think Harlem Eubank versus Conor Benn would be a better fight to watch at 147. My honest opinion, the reason this fight is on is because of Eddie. Eddie Hearn, he's not really bothered about anybody getting hurt. He's just seeing how much money he can make. It's making him thousands. It was sold out. It was making him millions, actually. It was sold out as soon as the tickets went on sale at White Hart Lane. Most of us, as trainers and managers, we would never consider putting a 147 welterweight in with somebody who's used to fighting at 168 middle, super middle. There's weight classes for reasons. Even if I go back many years when I'm sparring, I used to be featherweight. You know, I would not. I used to have to spar with light welters and giving 15 pounds regular in sparring, you can feel the difference compared to what you used to being hit by, even though you're using bigger gloves. So using fight gloves on a fight night, it's going to be that much harder when you're being hit. You will feel it. He will feel it. He's going to get hit. Some are going to land. What will his reaction be? We saw Conor being hit by the French guy and put on his backside a few times. So activity plays a part as well. Obviously we've seen Eubank, he's had his last 3 fights we've all seen, the 2 with Liam Smith and the one with the Polish guy in Saudi Arabia, etc. Conor Benn's had 2 iffy fights in America where he's gone the distance. A lot of people are saying there since the drug test came through, and we know Conor's saying he's been found not guilty, but to be honest there's been no proof. Yeah, if I'd been found not guilty of something, I would put proof out of what I'd done. I'd have written evidence that I'd been found not guilty. I just wouldn't say, yeah, go on, sort it out, I've been not guilty. A drug cheat's a drug cheat, we all know that. They should be banned for life. If it's intentionally taking performance enhancing drugs, get out the game. Get out the game. So we don't really know what's going on with Conor Benn over the drugs side of it. But it looks like since he's had them couple of fights after he's failed the drugs test, he's not been as strong. So that makes you look a bit iffy as well, doesn't it? Yeah, so with the drugs thing, we all saw pictures of him being super strong, blowing people away. Then he fails a drugs test. And then he's not so strong and he's not knocking people out. So it doesn't look good for him, to be honest. Now, I'm not having an opinion whether he's taking the drugs or he's not, but so far what it looks like, it doesn't look good on him. And like I say, if you take performance enhancing drugs, I don't care who you are, you should not be in boxing if you get caught using that, because it's dangerous. It's a dangerous sport. It's cheating. It's the worst form of cheating. So I would definitely be, if I was innocent, I would show physical written proof and evidence that I was not guilty. I wouldn't just brush it under the carpet. And like I say, Eddie Hearn, he's only interested in the money. He's not bothered. He could be getting his prize asset, 147 fighter, smashed to bits by a 168 fighter. He doesn't care. Like I say, as a manager and a trainer, if somebody came to me and said, would your 147 fighter fight this 168, I would go, different weight classes, mate. You know, your 3 weight classes out, forget it. It's one thing sparring, but in competition with them little gloves, you don't do it. So Eddie's saying he cares about his fighters. He cares about money first, if you ask me. That's the way it looks to me. He's all about the money, not about the kid. So, like I say, I'm like everybody else in the game now. I'm 50-50. 50-50. I don't think the rehydration clause is going to affect Eubank. I don't think... The only thing I can say against him is his age. He's 36. Conor Benn's what, 27 in his prime? But as the old saying always goes, a good big un will beat a good little un. So 50-50 fight. You've got my opinion on the equipment they're going to use, and that's my opinion on this big fight. Everybody wants to see it. It wouldn't bother me if it didn't happen, to be fair. There's plenty of good fights coming up soon. There's a good one tonight in Altrincham. Pat Brown having his debut. I'll be watching that. That'll be a good fight. There's two other fights on in the UK tomorrow night. I've got interest in. Well, one's in Gibraltar. Jack McGann's on that. Jack McGann's been in our gym a couple of times preparing for this fight. Good luck to Jack McGann on that one. And Tyrone Buttigieg, the Gibraltar superstar, super featherweight. He wears our gloves, so he's a good chap. He's one of our sponsored fighters. Good luck to him tomorrow night. And in the UK we have Elizabeth Ashoba. She's on a Nielsen show. I think it's a Nielsen show. Elizabeth, she was Commonwealth Games silver medalist at 57 kilo. She's now IBO International and WBC silver belt holder. She's a superstar in the weighting. She wears our stuff as well. She's another good one to watch. Exactly what platform that's on, I'm not quite sure. I think it's on YouTube, so I'll be trying to watch the two on Saturday night. Make sure our fighters look really good in the gear. Both wearing. In fact, no. Elizabeth's wearing these, and well, she should be, unless we have more problems. And Tyrone's wearing the new version of these, which look like this, but they've got this padding in. So we'll see how they go. I hope they do well. Well, I'm sure they'll do well because they're both very good fighters. Good luck to Pat Brown. There's a couple of other good fights on that bill tonight as well. Oh, you've liked this one? It's different. Hopefully next week we'll have delivery that should have been here 2 weeks ago, and it should be here next week. And we'll have plenty of content of our usual things, showing our new things. Please like, subscribe. Please subscribe. It's free. As I always say, and everybody else seems to say on YouTube, 80% of our watchers don't subscribe. Subscribe to us. Get us on here. We can do more content. We do what I want to do. We want to do more. That means we can show you more equipment. We can show you more comparisons. And I can show you the equipment being used. This is our end goal. We want to go into the gym to show you all the fighters using our stuff in training. And at the back of shows, seeing our fighters being gloved up in our equipment. So like, subscribe, pass us on to your friends, and I'll see you next week.